We had a flyer where they were talking about black women who were domestics working in white communities, how they would be at the bus stops and they would attack them at the bus stops and kill them by injecting air into their veins with hypodermic needles. They said this publicly, and the dragon stood before the woman. On the purely physical level, sisters, you do not know how important you are to the future of the nation. And don't you realize that the enemy is set to destroy the black woman? Because if he destroys you, we have no future.
Minister Louis Farrakhan has never spoken in vague terms. His lectures cut directly into the realities facing black people in America. In this address, he raises issues that touch both the spiritual and the physical, the dangers of hypocrisy within communities, the threats of violence from outside forces, and the need for protection of black women who carry the future of the nation. The message is not presented as abstract theory, but as guidance for survival and discipline. Farrakhan draws on scripture while pointing to conditions that continue to shape the daily lives of black families. His concern is not only with belief, but with action, urging listeners to see the seriousness of the time. What follows is not simply a speech, but a challenge for black people to recognize their value, guard their future, and remain steadfast against the forces that work against them. If you believe the time has come to face hard truths about our people and the struggles we endure, stay with me. And while you're here, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss messages that speak to the reality of black life and the fight for our future. Now, let us return to the words of Minister Louis Farrakhan.
O prophet, strive hard against the disbelievers and the hypocrites, and be firm against them, and their abode is hell, and evil is the destination. They swear by Allah that they said nothing, and certainly they did speak the word of disbelief and disbelieved after their Islam. And they purposed that which they could not attain. And they sought revenge only because Allah, as well as His Messenger, had enriched them out of His grace. So if they repent, it will be good for them. And if they turn away, Allah will chastise them with a painful chastisement in this world and the hereafter. And they shall have in the earth neither a friend nor a helper. And of them are those who made a covenant with Allah. If He give us out of His grace, we will certainly give alms and be of the righteous. But when He gave them out of His grace, they became niggardly of it, and they turned away, and they are averse. So He requited them with hypocrisy in their hearts till the day when they meet Him, because they broke their promise with Allah and because they lied. Now these verses of the Quran are directed toward a particular class of people. And that class of persons or people is considered in the lowest depth of the fire, because there is nothing lower in the sight of God than a hypocrite. They're even lower than a devil, because a devil is a devil. But a hypocrite feigns to be of the righteous, while in his heart he's an enemy of the righteous.
Minister Louis Farrakhan turns to a passage from the Holy Quran that speaks directly to the challenge of hypocrisy. The verses instruct believers to strive against disbelievers and hypocrites, to be firm in resistance and warn of the consequences awaiting those who betray the truth. For Farrakhan, these words carry a weight that extends far beyond their 7th century context. They are not abstract. They are a mirror reflecting real struggles faced by the faithful, and especially by black people navigating a hostile society. The Quran describes how some individuals take the covenant of faith, declare allegiance to righteousness, but later abandon it when comfort and personal gain present themselves. It warns of people who promise generosity and service if blessed with grace, only to turn inward and greedy once those blessings arrive. This betrayal is not treated lightly. The scripture says such acts stain the heart with hypocrisy itself, sealing it until the day of reckoning. In Farrakhan's explanation, this is the essence of divine justice. A lie told to God is not just broken words, it reshapes the very soul into something corrupted. He highlights the gravity of hypocrisy by comparing it to outright evil. A devil, he notes, is openly a devil. There is no deception in its nature. A hypocrite, however, cloaks himself in the appearance of righteousness while secretly working against it. That duplicity makes the hypocrite even more destructive, for he enters the circle of the faithful only to weaken it from within. According to the Quran, such figures occupy the lowest depths of punishment because their betrayal comes dressed as loyalty. The importance of this teaching lies not only in religious terms, but in its social meaning. Hypocrisy destroys trust, whether in faith, in families, or in communities. For oppressed people, trust is often the most fragile, yet most necessary foundation. When black communities come together to build schools, churches, businesses, or movements, betrayal from within can shatter what outside forces could not. It is why Farrakhan stresses that the hypocrite is the most dangerous figure of all, more dangerous than the open enemy, because he disguises himself as a friend. This part of the message also underscores the seriousness of responsibility when one makes promises, especially promises made in the name of God. In the Quranic example, people claimed that if blessed with wealth they would give to the poor and uphold righteousness. But when wealth came, they withheld, turning stingy and indifferent. Their lie did not go unnoticed. The divine response was to mark their hearts, shaping them into hypocrites. This illustrates a timeless principle. Words without integrity erode the soul. For a community struggling against exploitation, this failure of integrity is not just a private flaw. It is a collective wound. Exploitation, this failure of integrity, is not just a private flaw. It is a collective wound. By grounding his teaching in these verses, Farrakhan frames hypocrisy as a betrayal that cannot be tolerated if a people hope to survive. Hypocrisy is not just a religious problem, it is a social poison. In movements for liberation, history shows how infiltrators, opportunists, and weak-hearted allies have caused collapse from within. The Quran's warning speaks to that reality as clearly now as it did centuries ago. In the end, this passage presents a sharp truth. Betrayal of trust brings punishment, not only in the hereafter but in this life. Hypocrites are left isolated, without true friends or helpers, because their dishonesty eventually reveals itself. For Farrakhan, this serves as both a warning and a lesson, that the survival of black people, their faith, and their movements depends on resisting hypocrisy with firmness, clarity, and unshakable commitment to truth.
We live in a time now, or at a time, when the enemy is upset over so many black babies coming on the planet. Who produces them? Who produces them? You do. So the book is telling you that at a certain point, the enemy is going to attack the black woman. And this is happening right now as we speak. The Ku Klux Klan has said from Atlanta, Georgia, I don't know whether you saw the television show, I didn't get a chance to see it, but I heard about it, that this man, Wayne Williams, that was accused of killing all those little boys and a few girls in Atlanta, that he really was innocent of that, but they suppressed information that would have led directly to the Ku Klux Klan, because they did not want black people to know that white people were killing young black boys while they were building Atlanta to be this great city with business opportunity. A race riot would have destroyed that image and set the city back. So they suppressed that evidence. According to this television show, Wayne Williams became the scapegoat while they knew it was members of the Ku Klux Klan. And one of these demons, members of the Ku Klux Klan, said that they were killing young boys, but they were going to start killing the black woman who produces these nigger children. Which, as you may recall, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, before he departed from us, he stopped our sisters from coming out to night meetings. Only the brothers came out at night. You remember that? There was no Wednesday night, no Friday night that the sisters came out. Just a skeleton crew of officials to handle the women who might come to the mosque. But the sisters were not here. He never let the sisters then have jobs at night. And he said that the sisters should not go out on the street at night unless you are accompanied by your father, your husband, or your brother. But you should not be alone in the streets at night. Now, this was in the 70s. Now we're in the 90s, and they are actually killing our women. We had a flyer where they were talking about black women who were domestics working in white communities, how they would be at the bus stops and they would attack them at the bus stops and kill them by injecting air into their veins with hypodermic needles. They said this publicly, and the dragon stood before the woman. On the purely physical level, sisters, you do not know how important you are to the future of the nation. And don't you realize that the enemy is set to destroy the black woman? Because if he destroys you, we have no future.
Minister Louis Farrakhan shifts his focus to the role of black women and the dangers they face in a hostile world. He frames the matter not only as spiritual, but as physical, immediate, and urgent. For Farrakhan, the survival of black people is inseparable from the survival and protection of black women, because they are the producers of future generations. The imagery he draws upon makes it clear the enemy understands that if the black woman is destroyed, the nation itself cannot continue. He points to a specific historical moment in Atlanta, Georgia. During the early 1980s, a series of murders of young black boys and girls devastated the community. Wayne Williams was arrested and accused of being the killer, but Farrakhan highlights how some accounts suggested that Williams was used as a scapegoat. According to these reports, evidence was suppressed that could have directly implicated members of the Ku Klux Klan. Authorities, fearing that exposure of white supremacist violence would ignite unrest and damage Atlanta's image as a growing economic center, allegedly allowed the truth to be buried. For Farrakhan, this case represented more than injustice toward an individual. It was an example of how systems protected white supremacy at the expense of black life. He recalls testimony that members of the Ku Klux Klan not only admitted to targeting black children, but also threatened to begin attacking black women themselves. Such threats, he explained, were not idle words. They revealed a deliberate strategy to strike at the very foundation of black survival by targeting the women who give life to the community. Farrakhan also reminds his audience of guidance once given by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who years earlier had instructed that women of the Nation of Islam should not attend evening meetings or walk the streets at night unaccompanied. At the time, some may have considered this instruction restrictive, but Farrakhan interprets it as foresight, a measure of protection at a time when danger against black women was rising. He stresses that Elijah Muhammad had barred sisters from late-night activities because he understood the threats that awaited them. The urgency of this message becomes clear when Farrakhan recalls reports of attacks on black women working in white communities. Flyers circulated warning that women waiting at bus stops after leaving their jobs were being murdered in a gruesome manner, injected with air into their veins by hypodermic needles. According to Farrakhan, this was not a rumor whispered in secret. It was spoken of publicly, a chilling declaration of intent to terrorize. He connects these warnings to the imagery from the Book of Revelation, where a dragon waits before a woman to destroy her child. In Farrakhan's interpretation, this dragon represents the forces of white supremacy poised to attack the black woman in order to prevent the birth and growth of a future generation. At the heart of this section is the reminder to black women themselves. Their importance cannot be overstated. Farrakhan insists that many sisters may not fully realize how essential they are to the future of the nation. He emphasizes that their destruction would mean the destruction of everything. Without the black woman, there is no continuation, no survival, no future for black people. This passage combines historical reference, prophetic imagery, and social commentary into a warning. The attacks on black children in Atlanta, the threats against black women, and the protective measures urged by Elijah Muhammad are all framed as evidence of a larger, ongoing strategy to undermine black life at its root. For Farrakhan, defending and respecting black women is not optional. It is the condition upon which survival depends.
I was driving today, early this morning, and as I drove down 55th Street, I saw a sister standing by the bus stop. She didn't see me. I don't know the sister. She had on a dress of decent length. She had on a headpiece. She was covered. And she was sitting there. And as I drove by and I saw her, I said a prayer. I wanted to just stop and let her know how proud I was that she was there dressed in a manner that would protect her. When you dress in the way the messenger taught us to dress, there's protection for you, sisters. This Quran is not a book of lies. This is a book of truth. And it tells the Muslim woman, lower the hem of your garment, that you may be known. You don't want people not to know that you are the righteous. Because when you are known as the righteous, people think before they mess with you because they know you got protection. And they respect you when you respect yourself. I was proud of that sister, and I was going too fast to stop. But my mind told me just to stop and go over and thank her for striving to be right. And I know she would have been shocked to see Farrakhan and for me to stop her and congratulate her, because to me, I appreciated her. This sister sitting right down in front, Sister Louise, no matter where I see you, sister, you are always dressed as a Muslim. And I want you to know from me publicly that I love you and I'm deeply respectful of you and honored, that to know that I have a sister that will strive to be what the messenger asked. You can testify to the rest of the sisters that as long as you dress like that, men don't whistle at you, they don't bother with you, they show you honor and respect. And I say this, sisters, and I will not force you to dress any way that you don't wish to dress. But you need protection in today's world. These people are so crazy, if they are raped by an 80-year-old woman, I mean, that is madness. But they do it. If they will molest a 6-month-old baby, then mothers, don't put your little girls in these little party clothes showing their little form and their little backside and you think it's cute. There's some sick people in this world. Even in your own house. Tell the girls when they reach puberty, you cannot walk around in your own house uncovered, careless the way you sit, careless the way you dress. You must cover, and a good mother will make her daughter cover or smack the hell out of her.
Survival depends. Driving early one morning through Chicago, he saw a young black woman waiting at a bus stop. She wore a modest dress and a head covering, a way of presenting herself that reflected the teachings of the Nation of Islam. For Farrakhan, this was not just a passing sight, it was an image of dignity. He said a prayer as he drove by, grateful for what he saw as a demonstration of self-respect and protection. He explained that the way a woman carries herself sends a message to the world. Drawing from the Quran, he reminded the audience that Muslim women are instructed to lower the hem of their garments so that they may be known as righteous. To him, modesty was more than a religious requirement. It was a form of safety in a world that had proven itself violent and hostile to women, particularly black women. According to Farrakhan, when a woman presents herself with dignity, people think twice before attempting to harm or disrespect her. He described the sister at the bus stop as an example of strength, someone striving to live by the standards set by Elijah Muhammad. Her presence, modestly dressed in public, filled him with pride. Farrakhan told the audience that women who follow these teachings often experience a different kind of treatment. Men do not whistle at them or approach them with disrespect, but instead show them honor. For him, this was evidence that respect begins with how one chooses to present oneself, and that self-respect invites recognition from others. Turning to the women seated before him, he singled out one sister by name, praising her consistency in dressing according to Muslim standards. He expressed public gratitude and affection for her, holding her up as an example to others. His point was not to shame, but to emphasize the protective power of discipline and faithfulness to the messenger's instructions. From there, his message grew more urgent. He described the dangers present in society, noting how violence against women spares no one. He mentioned cases where even elderly women had been assaulted, showing that predators have no limits. In his words, the sickness of society extends even to children, with incidents of infants and toddlers being abused. These examples were used to stress the importance of vigilance. He warned mothers not to treat the vulnerability of their daughters lightly. Clothing, he argued, should never invite unwanted attention, and what might seem like a harmless choice in dress could place children at risk in a world full of predatory behavior. Farrakhan told parents to instill discipline early, particularly when daughters reached puberty. He argued that even inside the home, girls should not be careless in their dress or behavior, as danger sometimes comes from those closest, even within families. The lesson was clear. Modesty and discipline are not outdated traditions, but necessary safeguards. In a society where exploitation and abuse exist openly, women cannot afford to ignore the protective value of modesty. Farrakhan's story about the sister at the bus stop served as a symbol. It represented the choice to live with dignity and the responsibility to protect that dignity against a world that does not always value black women's lives. At its core, this message was less about fabric and clothing than about survival. For Farrakhan, modesty is a shield. It is an act of respect for self, a declaration of worth, and a visible reminder to the world that black women are not to be treated carelessly.
You say that's awful. You say that's terrible for a man of God to speak like that. Let me tell you something. You ain't met a man of God yet. A man of God will not only beat you, he'll kill you. Go read your Bible. Men of God don't play with you. No. You know, our women are sacred and they're precious. I'm just saying this in this manner because you are so valuable. You are so precious in the sight of God. And for you not to put value on yourself and your daughters is sick. You just have to be a better and a stronger woman. You don't need no man if he gonna molest your child. You are the protector of your daughter. Even if you gotta kill a nigga, you are supposed to protect your daughters. They may put you in jail, but you'll come out quick. Yeah, I killed him. I'm not sending you home to kill your husband. But man, if you're doing that, you're worthy of death. And there will come a time when that kind of penalty will be carried out. None of us is that holy and that righteous yet, but many of us are striving to get there. Brothers, we have to look to our women with honor and respect. These men, we are the protectors of our women. You can't protect nothing that you don't control. So as a man, a woman has to give us a certain measure of control. You can't take it, she has to give it. We have to be worthy of that measure that she gives us. A woman is not going to give control to a fool. Nor should a woman give control to a fool. I'm not teaching rebellion, just some common sense.
Minister Farrakhan anticipates the reaction of those who would call his words harsh, even extreme, but he defends his tone as rooted in the seriousness of the matter. He insists that a true man of God does not water down the truth, nor does he shy away from strong language when the protection of women and children is at stake. Farrakhan emphasizes that women are sacred and invaluable in the sight of God. To him, failing to protect them or allowing them to be diminished is an offense not only to the community, but to God himself. His urgency comes from the conviction that black women are the bearers of the future. Their well-being is directly tied to the survival of the nation. If they are not defended, the generations they nurture are also endangered. He challenges mothers in particular to recognize their role as protectors of their daughters. Even if it means confronting great risk or making difficult choices, he insists that mothers must never neglect their responsibility. His words are forceful, suggesting that any man who would harm his daughter, or any child, is committing an offense so grave that it warrants the highest penalty. For Farrakhan, the value of a daughter's safety outweighs the comfort of silence. This is why he frames neglect as unacceptable and cowardly, demanding strength instead of passivity. While his language about violence may sound severe, his underlying point is about accountability. He reminds mothers that failing to act against abuse is a betrayal of their sacred role. Protecting children requires vigilance, discipline, and courage. Even if the law might punish those who act in defense of their children, Farrakhan argues that such punishment would be temporary compared to the permanent damage caused by allowing abuse to continue unchecked. He then turns to the men in the audience, addressing them with equal weight. He makes it clear that men are the protectors of women, a role that demands both strength and responsibility. However, protection does not mean domination by force. It requires earning the trust and respect of women so that they willingly allow men to exercise a measure of leadership. Farrakhan acknowledges that women should never give authority to a man who cannot manage himself or who fails to live with principle. To him, true leadership is not imposed but recognized by those who are protected. If a man does not meet that standard, a woman should withhold her trust. Farrakhan insists that his message is not rebellion or disorder, but common sense. It is a call for order in households and communities, where women are honored and men are accountable. Both have roles that demand discipline, women as protectors of the next generation and men as protectors of women. For him, these roles are not negotiable. They are the pillars upon which the survival of Black people rests. This part of the lecture crystallizes Farrakhan's recurring theme: protection is a sacred duty. Whether as mothers defending their daughters, or as men safeguarding the women of their communities, failure to uphold that duty is a betrayal of divine responsibility. His message is meant to awaken not comfort, to demand vigilance and strength in a world that too often preys upon the vulnerable. If these words resonate with you, don't let them pass without action. Truth demands not only to be heard, but to be carried forward. Make sure you subscribe and turn on the bell, so you never miss the messages that confront falsehood and fight for the future of Black people. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, and let's continue this journey together.